how do we do baptism? Baptism in the Bible is always by immersion, every single time. The word baptizo actually means to plunge or submerge in water. That's what it said when Jesus was baptized. He was immersed in water and then he rose out of it. And so submersion is in the water is the best symbol, because remember, we're symbolizing death, burial, and resurrection. So how do you bury people, right? If you've ever been to a graveside service, you know that they don't just sprinkle some dirt over it and be like, we're done. You bury them 6 feet in the ground, all the way under, right? We don't want them coming back up. That's what The Walking Dead is all about. So being submerged underwater represents totally dying and being buried. There's a moment where people, I've held, probably hundreds of people at this point in the water. There's a point where they're horizontal underneath the water. And then we bring them back up, because it's a symbolizing of death and burial and then of resurrection. And so when you put somebody in the ground and they die to their old way, before Jesus raised them from the dead and gives them a full resurrection, there is a full burial. And so we immerse people in water because it's that symbol, again, of death and resurrection. And here's why this matters, and here's my challenge to you guys who've been baptized, and you're like, great information, what does this have to do with me? Those of you who are watching and maybe you've been baptized and wondering what applies to you about baptism. I was reading this story a long time ago about the Knights Templar, and I don't know if you've heard of them. They're crusaders who were in Jerusalem in like the 1300s. They're like, oh, all these knights, most of them were bankers. It doesn't really matter. But they're always like in fiction stories as like these nefarious bad guys, and they did terrible things too. But not like Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown, complete fiction nonsense. So anyway, the Knights Templar were knights, and they had swords. And there's this kind of famous legend that when the Templar Knights would be baptized, they would be baptized with their sword, but they wouldn't baptize their sword. In fact, when they went under the water, they kept their sword hand out, clinging to that sword and keeping it above the water. And so baptism is symbolic of the old going under, being buried and dead, and the new rising up with Christ. So what does it mean if you refuse to let something go under? Well, it means that you're not submitting that sinful part of yourself to the Savior. It means that you're holding something back. It was the Knights' way of saying to Jesus, listen, you can have all of me, but you can't have this. I still call the shots on this. What I do with this on my time on the battlefield, the things that I carry out, that's not part of the deal, Jesus. And it's this partial thing. And if this was still practiced today, most of us wouldn't hold up a sword. I mean, some of us probably have some revenge and anger issues we need to submit to Jesus, but most of us would probably hold up a wallet or our cell phone, right? Maybe if we could, we'd hold up our car, metaphorically, or a bottle or a job title. Many people say to Jesus, I'll follow you, I'll do anything for you, but I got one little thing. And you read through the story of the Bible, right? Nicodemus, it was a religious reputation. For the rich young ruler, it was literally his stuff, his wealth. In Luke 9, people give all kinds of excuses, right? When God invites them to come celebrate the wedding feast, and they give excuses like, well, I got new cattle, I got to try them out. Well, I got married, I kind of had plans tonight. My father died, I have to go bury him. And listen, they're not even bad things. But when a good thing gets in the way of a God thing, it becomes a bad thing. When we don't submit everything to God, partial submission is no submission at all. And it's that thing where death and sin are so insidious, because it's something we think we just hold on to this little 10%, 5%, 2%, God, this is my stuff. That's where death sneaks in and will completely grab a hold of our lives. And so if you've been baptized already, here's my question to you. Is there anything that you're trying to keep out of the water? Is there anything that you've buried that just trying to climb its way back up? Is there something in your life that you need to resubmit to Jesus? Because you don't need to get rebaptized. You already have done that. But is there something in your life that is trying to take control and wrestle it away from that full commitment to Jesus? Is there something in your life that you can't say, I'm dead to this, I'm dead to the world, and fully alive in Christ? Is there something trying to claw back control?